Have you ever heard a mindfulness teacher use the term feeling tone and wonder, what is that really? Come on, let's learn a little bit more about feeling tones or Vedanas. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindfulness Voyage. My name is Ted Meissner, and I'm so glad to be able to talk with our guest today about Vedanas or feeling tones and how they impact our mindfulness practice.
Our guest today is Martine Batchelor. Martine, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, pleasure. Nice to be here.
So, for those of you who may not be familiar with Martine's work, I'm wondering if perhaps you could say just a little bit about your background to introduce yourself to those who might not know much about you.
Okay, I am 71 years old, so I have a certain amount of life. So my Buddhist background is 10 years as a nun in the Son Buddhist tradition in Korea. And then after 2-3 years, when I came back to live in England, then I started to teach. And then I met all my friends in England were doing mindfulness and insight. And then I thought, oh, I'll try insight retreat and see how it is as a participant. And then I could really see the connection between the fundamentals of meditation, even though the theory is different, the theology is different between the Son school and between the Insight school. I really could see the connection. So I thought, there is a different way to meditate. And so that was very interesting in terms of the mindfulness, but also in terms of my practice, which up to that point I'd been questioning. And so then I started to teach meditation. Then I was very involved with Gaia House, a meditation center in South Devon in England. I was part of the teacher council and doing different things. And then I was living in England and teaching abroad. I was also writing books about meditation, doing a little kind of interface, also meeting. And then in 2000, I went to live in France, in part to take care of my ancient mother. And then from there on, I've continued to write somewhat, to teach somewhat. And after COVID, less writing and less teaching.
Thank you for that overview. And I know it can be tricky to condense so much activity. And for those who are watching or listening to this, I wanted to say by way of my own personal endorsement that I have had the opportunity to be in sessions and on retreats with Martine, and she is just one of my favorite teachers ever. And I just want to acknowledge your gentleness and your getting at the heart of practice has been really helpful to me in my own life. So thank you so much for that. And let's talk a bit about a topic for today is Vedana. And maybe you could describe what that is and maybe translate that a little bit for English speakers about what is that word and what does that mean?
Okay, maybe I could say why, me coming from a Son Zen background, why did I become interested in Vedana? Well, first, of course, I saw that the meditation, you have the same two components of focusing and inquiry, and the same development of calmness and clarity. But then what I started to think about is people come on retreat, they have good experience, and then they go back home, and then it's difficult again. Then I started to become interested in habits. And so in a way, I see meditation as helping us to go back to creative functioning. And then, we have, through different survival mechanisms, developed certain habits, which can be helpful or not helpful. And so that's why I started to talk a lot about habits and working with habits, mental, emotional, physical, relational. But then I thought, why do you have habits? And especially, why do you have painful habits? I thought, often when we have habits, it's like one moment we calm and clear, and next moment we're impatient and not very gentle or smart, depending on the condition. And then I became interested in Vedana. And of course, it's in the Satipatthana Sutta as a second foundation of mindfulness. And then I was doing these retreats and people talked about Vedana. And then, I was sitting in meditation trying to find Vedana, trying to find the feeling tones. And I could not find anything for a long time until I realized I was actually finding the neither pleasant nor unpleasant tonality. And then I could see that on retreat, you're going to have generally less of an intensity. But if you want to really explore mindfulness of the feeling tone, you will see more the intensity and the gradation if you are outside. If you are going about your life and then you see something beautiful, or you might see something disgusting, or you might see something you are indifferent to. And then I thought, on meditation retreat, you can actually focus more on how do you experience it and how does it move you. And in daily life, you can see more what effect it has on you. And then I discovered this wonderful text in the sutta, which is 108 possibility of tonality. And then, I thought the Buddha, he really kind of reflected upon this subject. And so, because generally when you talk of Vedana, of feeling tone, and again, this is difficult as translation because basically the root of Vedana is an experience, a felt experience, you could say. But then, as the Buddha says in the text, it can be mental or it can be physical. And then that's why you have, for example, the teacher Goenka, Mr. Goenka, who translate Vedana as sensation. At the beginning, people were saying feeling, and then people get confused between feeling as basic feeling tone, which is really Vedana, and feeling as emotion, like anger, happiness, joy, etc., which are more complex. So then the Buddha said, you have the two, mental, physical, then you have the three, which everybody knows about, pleasant, unpleasant, neither, but then you have more. And to me, what I find very interesting with that list is when he says you can have the experience of tonality without insight, and then generally there'll be grasping. Or you can have the experience of tonality with insight. And so we have to be careful because often Vedana is seen as a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Vedana actually is one of the omnipresent factors in terms that it's what makes life life. Even weeds, you could say, have tonality, you could say. I have friends who have done a study of weeds, and then if they just have, you have the weed, which is a terrible weed, binding stuff, then if you put just kind of like a wheat, kind of a grass, it'll go to it because that's all there is. But if you put the grass and then you put the tomato plant, then you see it kind of going like, no, like, whoops, and then it kind of goes to tomato. So in a way, it kind of, I'm sure it's not conscious, but there is a preference for the tomato than the grass. So in a way, when you have life, that it be plant, animal, people, tonality is a given. Because personally, I think it's a survival mechanism. It was make us what is good for us, what is bad for us, what is neither. And so it's kind of just being human. It's a survival mechanism. But then I think mindfulness of feeling tone is such a rich terrain to explore. And it's kind of like, it's really personally, I feel it's a wonderful exploration.
there's so many layers to what you bring up. The Vedana as these different ways it's been interpreted. The direct translation of the word to feeling, and people immediately go to emotion. It's like, well, no, not quite. That may be part of the experience. It may have a particular emotion, may have a particular feeling tone, sure, but it's more than that. And there's the mental and the physical and just the overall umbrella idea of, you use the word tonality. What is it like? What is this? And it fits so beautifully with formal practice, whether you're on retreat or just doing your sit or you're out in the world. That tonality is there. And being able to explore that, that's the insight part, the mindfulness part of, okay, what is this? And ties to a practice I know is one you've done for a long time. What is this practice? Ties directly into that. So I'm wondering if you might say a little bit about, for people who might be at that point where you are, not finding tonality and not being aware, oh, it's right here all the time. Why is noticing that feeling tone helpful? And your book Habit speaks very well about this too, and I'll be linking that on the episode page. But I wonder if you could say a little bit more about, okay, how does this work? How does noticing pleasant, unpleasant, neither of those, how does that help?
You see, first we have not to think that we're going to label pleasant, unpleasant, or neither. To me, about the tonality, what I found the most interesting is change. You see, because in a way, what you have to see is that you have the 5 omnipresent factor, and especially you have the first 3. You have the contact, feeling tone, and in a way, perception. So the 3, and then you have intention and attention. But I think contact, if you don't hear something, you don't have the feeling tone. Perception, if you think in this instead of that, you're going to have a very different feeling tone. So it's very important to see, not, I'm going to try to find a feeling tone separate from the fact that there was a contact and from the fact that there was some perception. And that's why I find kind of like the way to use mindfulness of feeling tone in meditation. If you start with just a sensation of the breath, then you're going to meet neither most of the time. If you start to look at sensation of contact, then again, fairly possibly neither. But then you might have a pleasant sensation of coolness, of an unpleasant sensation of kind of like a little pain. And then to see if there is a pleasant sensation, because suddenly I feel some coolness, how long does it last? Like, if you have a contact, if the contact disappears, does the tonality goes with it, or is there an echo? If you have a contact which lasts, does the tonality remain the same? Does it go up? Does it go down? Does it go to neither? So when I look at tonality, I'm not trying to pin something down. And so I don't say to people, say pleasant, unpleasant, neither, +1, +2, -1, -2. No. I see it more as a way to go inside the experience and to kind of really, how does this feel? How does it change? So that when you do this in meditation, you become more aware of that aspect of our experience. Because the thing with tonality is that it changes very fast from the tonality, which is just a basic. I mean, the best example I can give of tonality is when you look at color. Color, as far as I know, I've not done you anything. Green, blue, red, white. It has not attacked you. It has not done anything to you. You look at color and immediately beige, black, red. I mean, it's so interesting, something like that, immediately. we have that tonality. So I think that's the best way to look at tonality in terms of experiencing it, is looking at shape, looking at color. And then to see that the tonality, I mean, the point of the Buddha, he was not saying be mindful of tonality for its own sake. No, what he was interested in was the underlying tendency to the Vedana. The fact that he said, if pleasant, you want more, unpleasant, you want to get rid of it, and neither gets complicated. So in a way, that's what I want to explore during the workshop, is to look at kind of actually looking at the basic text and what the Buddha says, which are so interesting and so relevant actually to this modern world, to our experience now, that at one level, people 2,500 years ago had tonality, and we have tonality too. And what is interesting in the 108 also I like very much is the Buddha saying you have the tonality of the past, the tonality of the present, and the tonality of the future. That's so interesting again. What is it we experience? What's happening now? Or some memory coming from the past, which are going to change our tonality now? Or fear of the future, which is going to change the tonality now? I mean, it's such a wonderful subject.
Yeah, just that one layer of restlessness and worry of that set of hindrances. You mentioned the workshop. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. If you could give just a bit of a preview of what you plan on talking about and doing. I know you've mentioned a lot of the description here, but maybe say a little bit more about that and maybe some challenges that people who are new to tonality may run into when they start with that kind of directing of their attention.
Personally, I think if you present it in a practical way, you see the problem generally, the way Vedana is presented, it's bad, you have to cut it and move on. This is not what I do. What I do is get to know tonality in order to creatively engage with them. So I want you to explore it. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk for like 30 minutes at a time. Then we will have a 30-minute meditation. Then we'll have 30-minute discussion. Then we might have a break or a little walking, depending on what's happening. I might send you outside to experience tonality outside. Then coming back, then again, presentation of 30 minutes, then again meditation, then again discussion. And then we'll see, according to the time, if toward the end we can have like small groups, depending on numbers, and again, depending on the room, and then where people can share also the experience of tonality. So that's what I want to do, something where of course, I'll present some idea and some suggestion, but I really want to do the meditation, also some walking outside, if the weather is good, and then also have a little exchange with me, but also a little exchange possibly in small group. So things like that. That's what I generally do, trying to make it very practical. I'm really kind of like, how do you feel now? And kind of really looking at contact. What we will also explore will be the sixth door, sense door, kind of the thought, the smell, the taste, etc.
Yeah, that sounds terrific. And for those who are listening who might not be familiar with this, who may be stumbling a bit on the six senses, but we have five, in the way we're talking about this, that includes thoughts as information about what's happening here and now. And what I find fascinating, as you referred to past and present and future, is that can be from decades ago, it can be just this previous moment. And so that intensity, the scale, the change is all part of this kind of practice and knowing. So thank you for that wonderful description. And I'm wondering if you might have any just parting thoughts before we let you go on with the rest of your day?
Well, I hope, because this is in a way to promote the conference, promote the workshop. I hope that I will meet everybody at the workshop, at the conference, and that in the meantime, they are keeping well and they have a practice of mindfulness which helps them in their life.
Thank you. Our guest today, Martine Batchelor. I'm going to have a few different links in the place where links are found on these podcasts. Martine, thank you so much for being here. So wonderful to see you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person in a couple of weeks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today, and special thanks to Martine Batchelor for her time as well. And remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can, and I'll see you next time on Mindfulness Voyage.